Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're doing a recap and review of Married at First Sight season 12 episode 8, Face to Face, Chris and Paige. So if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications. If you like the video, smash that like button, and also feel free to drop a comment down in the comment section below because I like to engage with my viewers and subscribers. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. So now we first see them air on today's episode where Chris was shown meeting up with his friends, Pastor Dwight and his friend Mikhail, who he hadn't seen since the actual wedding. And Chris said, of course, he was a little nervous to tell them about his decision to get a divorce from Paige and attempt to reconcile with his ex-fiancée, Mercedes, especially since Pastor Dwight had advised Chris to completely end any past flings or relationships before tying the knot. So Chris informed his friends that he did ask Paige for a divorce. He said, to be honest, when she came down the aisle, it was awkward for me standing at the altar because he wasn't 100% attracted to her. He said by having sex with her, he figured sex make you one and intertwine the souls. So we were intimate the first night. And what he said he was looking for was, hopefully to magically be into her, and it did not happen. And, Chris said he and Paige were determined to have a good time on their honeymoon in Vegas, but learned that some other, as he called it, devastating news that his ex-fiancée, Mercedes, was about 6 weeks pregnant. And Chris said the pregnancy made him want to figure things out with the child's mother. And this is where, Pastor Dwight said that he was feeling a mixture of emotions about what Chris had said about all of this, because he felt that Chris was moving or had been moving in the right direction since marrying Paige. He also said Chris needed to learn commitment because he had, before God, made a covenant with Paige to death do us part. Pastor Dwight said Chris' wife trumped whoever he was with before, and his child will be just fine. He also said you don't have to feel obligated to be with your ex because you're having a child with her. And I don't want you risk losing Paige. You switching out. But of course, Chris insisted he just wanted to focus on his responsibilities as being a father. But Dwight suggested, he actually be able to do that better with Paige by his side. Dwight didn't think Chris was making the right decision and leaving his marriage prematurely. Dwight also called Chris's decision-making selfish and embarrassing, both to Paige's family and his own loved ones. He went on as far to say that Chris was being immature, and then also his friend Mikhail added, I think you need marriage, bro. Mikhail complimented Paige's faith, her education, her financial plans, and the person she seemed to be. And Mikhail said that Chris hit it big with Paige, and he should have stuck to his marriage longer. Dwight also told Chris that he had a diamond, and those are rare. So Pastor Dwight asked Chris to, consider Paige's feelings and be mindful of all the people who were involved in his marriage and how they could be hurt in the process of him dumping his wife. And then, of course, this is where we saw Chris immediately shut down, and he replied, with all due respect, I'm really done with the conversation. And, Dwight told him, Chris, you made a selfish choice. And then Chris, of course, reiterated how he was pretty much done talking to them, and he had, checked out of the situation. So, they definitely gave pretty good advice, but it would only be great, of course, if Chris was to accept it. So now this is where Paige was then shown receiving a phone call from Chris, who, of course, asked Paige to meet him the next day for conversation with him and his ex-fiancée to clear the air. And then she says, 1 minute you tell me you want a divorce, and then the next 20 minutes you're whispering things, sweet nothings in my ear that are completely opposite of wanting a divorce. And now you want me to meet you and the mother of your child. how does that make me feel? She also said that in the confessional. And Paige said she wanted, of course, after going back and forth, setting a time. And honestly, I understand that these participants, for whatever reason, maybe even though they may not have to stay together, they have to continually film. But I'm wondering, what was the substance in bringing this to the forefront with this whole conversation. If he was done, all three can just go on with their lives. But obviously, production had another idea when it came to this. So, but according to what we saw, she was mulling over the fact of whether or not she needed to meet with them. And of course, she said that, she'll pray about it and get back to Chris later on. Of course, she questioned whether she should even engage in something like this and if the move was the right one for her soul and her own happiness. And honestly, that was the biggest question that I did see either in my comment section, in social media, is at the point where he wanted a divorce and was deciding to move on with the ex-fiance. From what we saw in episode 7, what would be the purpose of having this meeting for them, and of course, as we go further into, the show, we get to see what this is all about. So Paige made a decision, which is to meet with Chris and his fiance Mercedes as a way to take the power back in her relationship. Paige wanted to know where Mercedes stood and how she was feeling and thinking without going through Chris, as they considered a middleman. Paige never saw a sonogram, so she just dove right into questions to Mercedes, asking her, so yeah, how far along are you? She says she's about 7 weeks now. And as we did recall, at the start of the Vegas honeymoon, that's when she was determined to be 6 weeks. So Paige responded with a warm smile saying, oh, okay, how are you feeling? First and foremost, Paige, I want to let you know I have no ill feelings toward you at all, Mercedes said. And Paige was like, okay. But Paige asked Mercedes how it felt to find out Chris had suddenly signed up to marry a stranger on television. Did you know about the process and stuff? Mercedes admitted, no, I found out after I told him I was pregnant. So I think shocking is probably an understatement. I think I was more just like confused, and she says she's still confused. There's a lot of confusion. Paige laughed and said she could only imagine because Chris had clearly slept with her only 7 weeks prior. Y'all had a moment and then bam, he's married. That's what Paige pointed out, and she was laughing about it. Mercedes, of course, reiterated how she was feeling, which was a lot of confusion, and then Chris explained his intention for asking the two women to meet. This was not for drama. I just wanted there to be clarity and just clear the air or whatever, because this is my wife and this is the mother of my child, Chris says. And even though he may didn't want it for drama, obviously this is something production wanted to air for drama. Paige allowed Mercedes to ask her questions she wanted and, said that she's an open book who had nothing to hide. And Mercedes said that she's just trying to keep calm and take things one day at a time in order to process everything. Mercedes said she was feeling a lot of anxiety, and Paige acknowledged the situation had been very confusing for her as well. He said his fear was falling in love with me and us making it through. I was willing to work through things and make it work. That's what Paige has said. But hell, I don't see anything wrong with being a bonus parent to a child. And at one point in time, it was my own fear that I could even be pregnant too. Now, this is an interesting thing that, Mercedes said as she kind of glanced at Chris angrily as if she had no idea that Chris and Paige was having sex. Pregnant by who? Mercedes said. And she said, by Chris? And, Paige was like, so, yeah, before turning her attention looking at Chris. I don't know what y'all been talking about or what you haven't, but it's confusing for me as well. You said you were going to leave me, but what if I, was pregnant? I'm good now, but that definitely was a thought. in my head. Mercedes was like, he didn't tell me about that. And the interesting thing is they were blocked from what I remember from the honeymoon episode. So I don't know. A lot of this is confusing. I don't know. Like I said in my previous episode, was this all staged? I don't get it. It's just a lot of holes in all of this. Mercedes asked Chris if the thought of Paige being pregnant had crossed his mind, and Chris muttered under his breath, Mercedes confessed that this whole situation was embarrassing because she had been engaged to Chris just 3 months prior to him joining the experiment and then marrying someone else. Mercedes said Chris had left something big out of the conversation, adding, I'm counting on God to get me through this one because I'm a little lost right now. And then, of course, Paige says she didn't have anything else to say and felt like she got the short end of the stick because her intentions going into Married at First Sight was very, very pure. Chris, however, announced his intentions was pure as well. Of course, we do recall Chris had owned up to lingering feelings he had for Mercedes, and so she had every right to question his intentions for marrying someone else. Paige said she had been willing to accept Chris in spite of the pregnancy news, and Mercedes had nothing to do with her marriage. But when you tell me the mother of my child, I'm still in love with her and I still have feelings with her, I don't want to raise my child in a separate household. It can seem duplicitous, to be honest, Paige said. And Mercedes said, Chris had probably alluded to the fact that they were trying to work things out. Let me make this very clear. Me and him working it out, that's not my intentions right now at all. And Paige was shocked to hear that and told the cameras, if you're not reconciling with the mother of your child, then what's the real reason you're getting a divorce? Did you try to work things out with her and this is just a shock for both parties here? And Paige said, she didn't want to play games. She felt robbed of the experience. And, of course, Chris said, wait a minute, you could talk to me. And she said, no, I'm talking to her. And Paige went on to say he decided to get married under the pretense y'all situation was signed, sealed, delivered. So if you come here with pure intentions, you will think regardless of what he's faced against, you will still do what a man will do and carry on his responsibility as somebody's husband. Mercedes replied, yeah. And Paige continued, for him to be so eager to hop back into a situation that he said he left is kind of alarming to me. But Paige explained their relationship with Chris no longer served her, and she didn't feel any ill feelings toward Mercedes either. I just met you. You're beautiful, by the way. Mercedes said, you too, with the big smile. And of course, Chris was silent and announced that, of course, he was irritated by the conversation, but God is good. Mercedes pointed out, you always irritated. And Paige just figured he felt embarrassed because the woman he wanted to run back to was denying him on national TV. The joke's on you, she said, when she was talking to the cameras. However, Chris said his intentions was to respect Paige, not play with her emotions. Chris said he didn't want to play games with either woman's feelings. I don't want to lead you on, especially when I'm mentally checked out, Chris told Paige. That's all I'm saying. Paige was like, I appreciate that. Everyone made investments. However, Chris said Paige had her guns out and was firing shots, so the conversation did not go as planned. As Paige continued to talk, Chris talked over her and said, I can't wait to eat, order food, read the Bible, and catch up on my games today. Mercedes told him, that's not cute. But Chris argued that Paige had been rude all night. She said she's not being rude, actually. She's actually being respectful and nice. And Chris said it wasn't fair for Paige to paint the situation as he had mistreated her the entire time because that wasn't the case. I have been nothing but honest and respectful towards her, and I don't feel like the respect is being reciprocated at this point. And then Mercedes apologized to Paige for being dragged into this. Chris left the conversation. And he left the room at this point. And that's when, of course, we did get to see, he walked out and he left the conversation. And then Paige says she needs a man who's going to be there for her through thick and thin, sickness and health, and death do us part. Paige said Chris had yet to honor his vows, and so it was time for her to walk away. And, you know, she did say that she is okay with that. I pray my love story is a happily ever after. And then, of course, they give us an actual run back of their journey up to this point, from the time that they met at the wedding to the funny conversation that they had at reception. And, of course, she's thinking about those things and picturing what had happened on the wedding night. After the wedding festivities were over. And then, of course, how they were very playful in the intimate setting. I think, according to this clip, they were playing footsies with each other. And she's remembering all of those things. So, look like next week they're going to be back on screen again. We'll see what happens in episode 9. So let's do our post notification shout outs. If you want to be shouted out, drop a comment. I will see you and shout you out. This one goes to Kicking It with Kim Brooks. Thank you so much for engaging in the channel. I really appreciate your comment. And then also Derek Johnson. Thank you as well for engaging in the comment. I appreciate your engagement as well. And then last but not least, Victoria Leani. Thank you as well for engaging in the channel, and I appreciate your comment as well. So, until the next video, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you soon.